Hi, my name is michaelnotinger, and I'll be doing this short introductory course on Akasha and the Hermetic Principles. So, before we delve into the material, I just want you to question and research all of the information that I convey in this class. You only know what is the right subjective truth for you in any given moment, and no one else can tell you what exactly is true for you. They can only convey their own subjective truth, and then collectively we combine our subjective truth into one universal objective truth. And there is an objective universal truth, and you will know that once you can quiet your conscious mind. So, metaphysics is ancient knowledge about consciousness in the universe and how you can apply that knowledge to change pretty much any aspect of your life. It includes principles like universal oneness, thought creates reality, energy modalities, and others. It is heavily science based, but it includes all sufficient knowledge to a certain extent, with the greatest emphasis on science, philosophy, and spirituality, and how you can apply those principles and practices to your own personal life. And there are basically two types of knowledge in the world today. They are exoteric and esoteric. So exoteric knowledge is, for the most part, knowledge that is easily understood and readily available to the masses. It has taken shape as popular religions, mainstream science, and other widely known institutions. And unfortunately, about half of it is actually false information. Esoteric knowledge is knowledge that is not readily available or easily understood by the masses. In the past, it's been locked away by secretive groups such as secret societies and mystery schools. And if you told anyone outside the secret society the knowledge they tell you within the society, they would actually kill you in one of the most painful ways possible. And these secret societies currently exist in modern times, which I'll get to later on. It's also been sort of sequestered into a small quantity of rare books that almost no one had access to except for nobility and these secret societies and mystery schools. However, we are now at the precipice of a massive evolutionary leap as a species. We'll be able to evolve to the next level of consciousness, and this knowledge is now in a growing quantity of books. It's readily available on the internet, and people are able to now download it from the fabric of space-time due to the level of evolutionary development that we are reaching now as a species. So throughout numerous spiritual and philosophical traditions, there is something called enlightenment. There's a certain level of consciousness that you can reach as a physical organism where you realize what you are and what the universe is, and you massively expand your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual capabilities. So the maxim "know thyself" has adorned the halls of mystery schools and secret societies for thousands upon thousands of years. And the greatest mystery of all time is actually right in the mirror. How is it that we can create things? We can create thoughts, emotions, words, physical actions, and we can create life. We can create biological organisms basically out of nothing. You know, scientists say, oh, we create life forms by combining sperm and eggs together as one, but those are really small substances that create an entire organism basically out of nothing. And in the profound process known as morphogenesis, where we all start in the womb, we all begin as a single cell, smaller than a period at the end of a sentence. And through morphogenesis, we create trillions upon trillions of cells out of nothing and perfectly shape those cells into an entire biological organism through some profound process we don't totally understand at this point. And scientists say that cells divide, but what they really do is create more cells out of nothing. They draw non-physical electromagnetic energy out of the fabric of space-time and convert that into physical substances. So the greatest question that you can ask yourself, or in general, is who am I? And if you meditate upon that question for a long period of time, you'll realize there is no specific answer to that question. There's only general answers we'll get to later in this particular course. The famed physicist Max Planck said, I regard matter as derivative of consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything we regard as existing postulates consciousness. And so what he's saying is that it's impossible for you to get behind your own mental awareness. That's the foundation of everything you experience. And given that everything is composed of atomic matter, it means that everything must also be composed of consciousness at its core level. It must be the foundation of everything in existence. While everything may not have the same level of mental awareness as human beings, everything must have some kind of consciousness within it because it's something that's powering or animating its physical form to a certain extent. So, as we traverse the Earth rotates around the sun. As the Earth rotates around the sun rotates around the center of the galaxy. As the sun rotates around the center of the center of the galaxy rotates around the center of the universe moves through source, and source journeys through itself. In the Big Bang, the universe emerged out of an exceedingly hot and dense single point called a singularity, billions of times smaller than the head of a pin. And after that, the universe spiraled out of a primal version of its present form, and how the universe is actually expanding at an accelerating rate. This causes all universal processes to accelerate as well, including time, evolution, and technological advancements. So right now, biological evolution, including humans, is actually dramatically accelerating, which is why there's so much chaos and change going on this planet at an accelerating rate. And then our technology is also developing at an accelerating rate. It's expanding faster and faster. What we can do with technological capabilities, something called ephemeralization. So ephemeralization is the ability to do more and more with less and less. So for example, the first ever computer was created was about the size of a basketball court. It consumed a massive amount of power and was very, very inefficient. While as a modern day cell phone consumes a very small amount of power, can do a tremendous amount, and it occupies such a small radius that you can actually put it in your pocket. And so prior to the Big Bang, the source focused upon an exact point with a limitless domain of its own being, and then the universe spiraled out a primal version into its present form. The famed comedian Bill Hicks said, "Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. We are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream and we're the imagination of ourselves." So when you reach spiritual enlightenment, you realize that everything is you. Everything is made of energy, and that you create your reality with your mind. God, source, spirit, consciousness, the soul, the universe, and awareness are all actually the same thing. You are everyone and everything. In lucid dreaming, you may come to realize that all objects and beings in your dream are extensions of yourself. They are mental projections of your consciousness, and thus you can exert conscious influence over them. The external physical world is the same way. We are all mental projections of a singular infinite mind, and that given that everything is made of mind, we can change our realities with our minds as we're all portions of the source. And it actually becomes quite obvious once you think about it that you can't exist without other people or plants or animals or the sun or air or water on the earth or anything else within the physically manifest universe. We're incredibly connected to things that seem to be outside of and separate from ourselves. And so there can be no self without other, there can be no internal world without an external world, there can be no universal macrocosm without an individual microcosm. And so you realize in this state of being that everything is alive. There's nothing that's basically totally dead matter, that everything is animated with life force energy to a certain degree. Indra's net of jewels is a Buddhist concept that describes the way the fabric of the universe is woven together. Indra, the king of the gods, gave birth to a sun or solar system, and also moves the winds, the waters, and everything else within the physically manifested world. You can conceptualize of Indra's net of jewels as a spider web that permeates through all dimensions. The web is made up of dewdrops. Within every drop, you will find the reflections of all the other water drops. And within each reflected dewdrop, you'll find the reflections of all the other droplets, and so on to infinity. So the smallest quantum of light also contains the exact same patterns and information and energy as a large galactic system in space, just a different fractal level. And I'll get to fractals in just a bit. So the universe basically composed of three primary phenomena on an energetic and physical level. So the physical level is atomic matter. Atomic matter is physical structures we easily perceive with our physical senses and makes up 4% of the known universe. It's the smallest portion of the universe. The universe is actually much more non-physical than it is physical. Dark matter makes up 23% of the known universe and is separate from atomic matter, neutrinos, and dark energy. It's an unidentified type of matter that we don't totally understand quite yet. The largest percent of the universe is dark energy, which makes up 73% of the known universe. You can visualize or conceptualize of it as a giant nervous system that connects everything within the physically manifest universe, or a giant electromagnetic energy field. And so this image that you see on this slide here is actually dark energy. It's the dark energy within our local sector of the universe. It was created by the Max Planck Society in Germany through a simulation called the Millennium Run. So we can conceptualize of ourselves as cells or neurons within the body or mind of the universe. And so we are actually incredibly powerful because we're connected to everything in existence. A fractal is a rough geometric shape that can be split into parts, with each of which contains approximately a reduced size copy of the whole pattern, a notion that scientists call self-similarity, where everything contains the same patterns within these similar aspects. The term fractal was coined in 1980 by the famous mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot, who studied certain simple mathematical equations that, when they were repeated, produce an unending array of changing mathematical and geometric shapes that are both limited and limitless at the same time. So they contain paradoxical and complementary aspects. And so as you zoom in on the fractal, you see the same patterns, and as you zoom out from the fractal, you see the same patterns. The same patterns at different levels, even though there are also changes within those inherent patterns. And I quite like the spiral pattern because you can see that at all levels within existence. And if you look at ancient forms of human architecture and also artwork, you can see that humans have long associated the divine with fractal patterns because the divine is within everything and the same patterns at all levels within existence. The law of conservation of energy states that energy can never be created or destroyed. It can only change forms, and everything in the universe is actually composed of electromagnetic energy and information. So given that, there's no such thing as death, that everything just changes forms, which means that we exist for eternity. We just change forms through the process of reincarnation, where we adopt trillions of physical vehicles and evolve through the spiral of evolution. A dimension is essentially a plane of being. There are many dimensions in the universe, so there are many fractal scales. What we see outside of ourselves is the physical dimension, which vibrates at the lowest frequencies, the most separate dualistic dimension where the worst things happen, and also the best things happen, and everything in between. And as you ascend the dimensional scale, things become more and more unified and vibrate at higher and higher frequencies until you reach the highest dimensional level where all is literally one. So there's only one physical dimension and many non-physical or ethereal dimensions. We interface with these non-physical or ethereal dimensions through our thoughts and emotions, which are non-physical phenomena that vibrate at higher frequencies than physical phenomena. So in terms of basic phenomena in the universe, it goes physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So physical phenomena vibrates at the lowest frequencies. Above that is emotional phenomena, the mental, and then spiritual. So the spiritual creates the mental, emotional, physical out of itself in order to know itself experientially. So in physics, there is something called a quantum foam, which is virtual particles that exist within physicality for just a fraction of a second. And in Buddhism, this is called kalapas, which is tiny particles or wavelets that rise and fall out of physical existence trillions of times per second. So modern science is actually overlapping with ancient spiritual and philosophical traditions to a very large degree. In physics, there's also something called quantum entanglement, which is quantum non-local connection between quantum particles and wavelets of energy. So when two particles become energetically linked or entangled in some way, they will mirror each other's behavior regardless of the distance or time separation. So say on one end of the universe, there is an electron that's spinning clockwise. An electron that it is energetically linked to on the other end of the universe will also immediately start spinning clockwise regardless of distance or time separation, which supports the notion of universal oneness and that consciousness is the fastest force in the universe that can transmit information anywhere instantly. So the Earth and physical phenomena can move quite slowly, but then it can also move as fast as 67,000 miles per hour, which is the rate that the Earth moves around the sun. Water can move a little bit faster. Fire can move faster than that. Air can move even faster. Sound can travel at about 600 miles per hour. Light is so fast that it goes 186,000 miles per second. And then thought or pure consciousness goes even faster than that it can transmit energy and information anywhere instantly throughout the entire physically manifested universe. So atoms are almost entirely empty space. Atoms are composed of almost 99.9999999% repeating empty space. And you may ask yourself, how is that possible? How can empty space produce this seemingly solid and intense physical world that we perceive outside of ourselves? Because atoms vibrate at such a low frequency they appear to be solid, and they're filled with vibrating waves of electromagnetic energy and information. So in terms of the rising solidity or fluidity of phenomena in the universe, it goes through the 7 sacred elements, which are earth, water, fire, air, sound, light, and thought. So earth, or pure physical atomic matter, vibrates at very low frequencies, very resistant to change. It seems very solid, fixed, and static. Whereas the opposite end of the spectrum, thought, vibrates at such an incredibly high frequency we can't even really prove yet that thought exists in physical terms, even though scientists can measure something is happening when we think thoughts, such as different frequencies of brain waves like delta, gamma, theta, and so on. They can't yet prove that thoughts actually exist, that you're seeing something in your mind whenever you think thoughts, even though I'm sure we'll reach that level of technological development in the near future. So in the double slit experiment, scientists fired photons out of a laser, and depending upon if they were observing the experiment or not, the photons would behave like particles or like waves. And photons are just discrete packets of light energy. And so what this means in a more pragmatic sense is whatever you mentally focus on literally becomes more real in physical terms. Whatever you withdraw your focus from becomes less real in physical terms, becomes more non-physical or ethereal. And so whenever scientists study atoms and electrons, they can't pinpoint exactly where an electron is until they focus upon it, because it exists in a state of pure potentiality as a probability cloud or electron cloud. So this also relates to something called the observer effect. The observer effect is the changes that an observer will have upon a scientific experiment, which is why scientists have to do all these double-blind and triple-blind studies, because they can't know mentally too much about how the experiment works, because their thoughts will actually dramatically influence the outcome of the experiment, because thoughts literally create physical reality to a large degree. So spirit and matter are essentially the same force in different states or stages of manifestation. Within us is pure spirit or consciousness, or the unmanifest that vibrates at a very high frequency, and outside of us is the physically manifested world that vibrates at a much lower frequency. And so whatever is going on in your mind space is the process of creation, spirit is the source of creation, and the physical world is the object of spirit's creative efforts. So reality is both emergent and symbiotic simultaneously, or perpetual change and pure oneness. So things are a state of constant change every moment of every day. Every physical phenomena is highly unstable and constantly flipping between polarities, so we can't attach to anything for an extended period of time in this reality because it's all highly unstable. And what we attach to will produce tremendous pain and suffering. So it's best to detach from as much as we can, because anything we attach will produce unnecessary pain and suffering for ourselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that you become a narcissistic sociopath who is totally detached from all physical phenomena. It means that you allow experiences to flow inside of you and outside of you. You don't attach to things unnecessarily. So the famed psychologist Carl Jung postulated the idea of the collective unconscious, that we as human beings all share one giant subconscious mind. And he came to this conclusion through psychoanalysis of many patients, where he found that there were certain archetypes rooted in his patients' subconscious minds. And he also found the collective unconscious by doing introspective means and meditation himself, and he realized he could actually download information from the fabric of space-time, which in modern times we call channeling. That when you quiet your conscious mind, you have access to infinite energy and information that you can just download information you want to from the fabric of space-time, because everything's connected within the quantum field. So non-physical beings are real and can interact with atomic matter to a certain degree. We have called non-physical beings in the past things like ghosts, angels, demons, apparitions, spirits, and other things. We are actually non-physical beings that are temporarily within physical vehicles trying to know ourselves experientially within this one physical dimension. So space and time are one and maintain relative aspects. If you travel to a different space on Earth, you're now in a different time zone. And time is relative because if you're in an intensely dense scenario, say you're at a job that you can't stand, time seems to pass quite slowly. Whereas if you're on a date or an outing with someone that you love, time seems to pass much quicker. So the more that you enjoy the moment, the higher your frequency, the faster that time goes. And the lower your frequency, the more dense emotions you feel, and the worse your circumstances are, the slower that time passes. And this is of benefit to us to a large degree because in a survival issue or circumstance, you want time to be really slow. In that instance, you can really perceive mentally what's going on and that you can survive and get out of the situation. Whereas when things are going really well, time can just flow quickly because you don't have to be too conscious as much as what's going on in your external physical reality. And you can actually change your perception of time to a very large degree by altering your mental focus. So the more externally focused you are on the physical material world, the slower that time will progress. Whereas the more internally focused that you are, the faster the time will progress, because within us is the non-physical dimensions which vibrate at higher frequencies, and where time seems to pass much faster, or time doesn't even exist at all at certain levels of the non-physical. So there are basically three different types of time. There is linear time, nonlinear time, and present moment time. So linear time is a type of time that we're all intimately familiar with. It's where there's a past behind us, a present in the now, and a future ahead of us. We move through those in a straight line. In nonlinear or simultaneous time, the past, present, and future all occurring simultaneously. And scientists have found that it's true to a certain extent by doing experiments with quantum particles, where a particle can appear to be in two places and times simultaneously, such as the notion of quantum entanglement or quantum non-local connection. And then in present moment time, there is no past and there is no future, there is only the ever-expanding now. Because we only conceptualize the past and the future in the now. And you personally can move through these different types of time by altering your mental focus and kind of playing with your vibrational frequency. And the higher your frequency is, the further you are from linear time, the more you move into nonlinear time and present moment time. So now we move to the Hermetic Principles. The Hermetic Principles are a spiritual, philosophical, and also scientific tradition created for the most part by writings made by Hermes Trismegistus in ancient times. Hermes Trismegistus was reported to have been a philosopher that lived during ancient times who created various philosophical, spiritual, and scientific principles. In ancient Egypt, Hermes was called Thoth, the Atlantean, and then in ancient Greece, he was deified as Hermes. And so in ancient Egypt, he was kind of depicted as this god with a head of a bird and the body of a man. And then in ancient Greece, he was just a god who had various supernatural abilities and has a mostly human form. But it's kind of debated as to whether or not he was human at all, because his writings were so incredible and at a much higher level of mental development than most other humans who were alive during his lifetime. He was also purported to have lived 300 years in the flesh. He lived much longer than other humans at that particular time, which also suggests that he wasn't entirely human. And so The following are the Hermetic Principles, which are taken from a book called The Kybalion, written anonymously by 3 initiates. And throughout the ages, an initiate was someone who was deemed worthy to join the ranks of its secret society. Secret societies or mystery schools have long hoarded and guarded knowledge concerning the nature of reality and the nature of the universe. They began as neutral organizations who were simply safeguarding knowledge that most of humanity was not ready to handle at that time, because about 13,000 years ago, we had a massive, super advanced global human civilization, which was actually destroyed by a giant worldwide flood. And no one knows exactly why the civilization was destroyed, but it's reported that we were seriously messing with the natural environment to a very large degree. We were creating human and animal hybrids through DNA splicing for sexual reasons. We were messing with gravity waves in the Earth's environment and natural forces to such an extreme degree the Earth could not handle it, and so she flooded the surface of the planet because the Earth is actually alive, just as we are, because she produces all biological life forms to a certain extent on this planet. And so after Atlantis or Lemuria, whatever you want to call the civilization, was destroyed, there was some group of humans that were still vibrating at a very high frequency and had this knowledge about how reality operates and how the universe works. And so they chose to create mystery schools and secret societies because they realized the rest of humanity was just going down in consciousness, going asleep. And so they had to kind of keep the knowledge away from them because they were not the level of consciousness to handle that. But over time, these secret societies got corrupted. They realized that, wow, we have this massive knowledge and power differential over the masses. Why don't we use that to our benefit, manipulate the masses, keep them under control, and become the rich ruling elite? And they shifted from being light occultists to dark occultists. So a dark occultist is someone who uses knowledge about how energy, consciousness, and the universe works for their own personal benefit to manipulate and control others, and they are not beyond harming themselves or harming other people in order to obtain more personal power, and they're completely obsessed with personal power at all costs. Whereas the light occultist uses this knowledge of consciousness, energy, and the universe to help humanity awaken, to evolve through the spiral of evolution, and to actually help other people along their personal evolutionary journey. And I consider myself to be a light occultist to a certain extent. Whereas dark occultists are usually actually quite famous people who occupy some of the highest levels of government, corporations, and banks. So, the President of the United States, members of Congress, CEOs, and the presidents of banks are usually dark occultists who are manipulating humanity behind the scenes, unfortunately. And so some famous secret societies you might be familiar with are the Freemasons, Skull and Bones, the Rosicrucians, the Knights Templar, the Order of De Molay, the Builders of the Adytum, the Fraternity of the Hidden Light, and a number of others. And I highly recommend not joining any of those societies because you have to take a blood oath in order to join that you will not reveal any of the secrets that are given to you in this society. And if you do reveal any of the secrets that are not allowed to be revealed outside of society and they catch you doing that, they will actually kill you in one of the most painful ways possible. And it was necessary to obtain this knowledge and information about how the universe and consciousness work in the past because you literally could not get it anywhere else. But now there's no reason to join a secret society because you can look up this information on the internet for free or buy books relative to consciousness or just download it from the fabric of space-time. And so the Kybalion is surmised to have been written by William Walker Atkinson because there are corollaries between the Kybalion and Atkinson's work called Thought Vibration or the Law of Attraction of the Thought World. And both are excellent books, and I highly recommend both of them. So there are similar phrases in both books, and William Walker Atkinson definitely wrote the Thought Vibration, but no one's totally sure who exactly wrote the Kybalion, although in the book it says it was created by the Yogi Publication Society and the Freemasons, which are a secret society that manipulates humanity behind the scenes. All right, so let's talk about the first Hermetic principle, which is the principle of mentalism, which proclaims the all is mind, the universe is mental. So the universe is a mental construct held within the mind of the source. And given that all is mind substance, we can dramatically change our own personal reality by changing our thoughts. So our thoughts are incredibly powerful. They create our entire physical reality to a large degree. So Negative thoughts create negative words, emotions, actions, and interactions, and positive thoughts, the opposite polarity, they create positive words, emotions, actions, and interactions, including physical environments. And the notion that consciousness creates physical reality has been supported in numerous scientific capacities through the double slit experiment, quantum foam, quantum entanglement, neuroplasticity, epigenetics, psychoneuroimmunology, the placebo-nocebo effects, and a number of others. I feel like the placebo-nocebo effects are highly practically useful right now because governments, corporations, and banks are telling people, oh, you're just totally powerless over your own health. You're at the mercy of whatever viruses, bacteria, and toxins are in your outer environment, which is complete nonsense that we have absolute control and power over our health to a very large degree. All we need to do is think the right thought patterns, and then we become immune to all illnesses. But then pharmaceutical companies and vaccine manufacturers won't be able to make any money off of us, and they would basically go totally bankrupt. So they don't want people to know that your mind is actually incredibly powerful, and not only creating your health and disease, but also creating your entire physical reality to a large degree. So mind is a projection of spirit. Spirit projects mind out of itself in order to know itself and create physical structures to a large degree. And so understanding the principle of mentalism is also really important and connected to understanding what's called expanded states of consciousness. So when you have a contracted consciousness, when you're unconscious, when you're spiritually asleep, to a certain extent, you can perceive very little with your mind. But once you spiritually awaken, you expand your consciousness through many different means, then you can perceive a lot more of what's going on in your inner and outer realities. You also dramatically increase your mental power to a large degree. And as you progress along the spiritual pathway, the pathway of evolution and development, your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual capabilities all dramatically increase, which is one of the primary components of evolution, the purpose of the universe, which is evolution. So you can expand your consciousness through many different means. You can practice meditation, yoga, you can fast, you can take psychedelic drugs or entheogens, you can use crystals, you can use essential oils, you can use certain herbs that resonate with the chakras. Pretty much anything that resonates with the chakras, you can use to expand your consciousness. Chakras on a non-physical level are vortexes of energy that power our consciousness. And on a physical level, they're endocrine glands, which secrete hormones that vastly alter our experience of objective reality. And there are 7 major chakras inside the body, 5 major chakras outside the body, and countless minor chakras inside and outside of the physical body. So the 7 primary chakras inside the body are root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. So the root corresponds to our survival aspects. There's a red vortex of energy located at the base of the spine. Above that is the sacral chakra, which is just below the navel. It's an orange vortex of energy that corresponds to our sexuality, creativity, emotions, and the natural flow of life. Above that is the solar plexus chakra, which is a yellow vortex of energy at the diaphragm area that corresponds to our willpower and our personal power and the temporal self. Above that is the heart chakra in the center of the chest, which is a green vortex of energy that corresponds to our love, compassion, equilibrium, our relationships, and anything that is a balanced frequency. And it is the most important chakra because of the balance point between the 3 lower physical chakras and the 3 higher spiritual chakras. Above that is the throat chakra, located at the base of the neck. It is a blue vortex of energy that corresponds to our communicative abilities. It is associated with how we perceive or draw in and project sound vibrations. This is a chakra that I'm exercising quite a bit right now for this introductory course on Akasha and the Hermetic Principles. Above that is the third eye chakra, which is an indigo vortex of energy located above and between the eyebrows and the center of the forehead. It is associated with how we perceive and project light vibrations. And we actually only see a small slice of existence that we only perceive from infrared to ultraviolet light. There's basically an infinite spectrum of light outside of that. And so the light vibrations we can both receive and transmit expand as we progress along the spiritual pathway, and there are spiritual masters living today who can actually see electromagnetic energy fields in and around all things, and they can see energetic blockages within and around the chakras. And finally, at the top of the head is the crown chakra, which is a violet vortex of energy that corresponds to our connection to the non-physical dimensions and the entire physically manifested universe. And so there are many levels of awareness within the universe that you can ascend the levels of awareness as you progress along the spiritual pathway. There are also levels of awareness between different biological organisms and phenomena in the universe. So at the bottom of the scale will be things like rocks, which is where the phrase "you're dumb as a rock" comes from, that rocks are not very intelligent, obviously. Above that would be simple unicellular organisms. Above that would be complex multicellular organisms that are quite small. Above that would be plants and fungi. Above that would be animals, then humans, and then above us would be advanced extraterrestrials who've been visiting this planet for thousands of years. Above that would be super advanced non-physical beings that are beyond the physical dimension. And at the highest levels of awareness would be giant gestalts of consciousness that perceive and permeate through all universal phenomena, the universal oneness that subsumes all of the parts. And so there's a famous phrase from Sufism that says, God sleeps in the rock, dreams in the flowers, awakens in the animal, and in man knows he's awake. Okay, so I would like to finish this introductory course with a quote from Hermes Trismegistus, who said, to no atom you must share his identity, for only like can truly know like. Leave behind the material world and imagine yourself immeasurably expansive. Rise out of time to eternity. Believe that for you nothing is impossible. See that you are immortal and learned in every art and science. Be at home in the haunts of every living creature. Make yourself higher than the highest and deeper than the depths. Embrace within yourself all opposites, heat and cold, hard and fluid. Think yourself everywhere at once, on land, at sea, in heaven. Imagine yourself unborn, the womb, yet also young and old, and already dead, and in the world beyond the grave. See that everything coexists within mind, all times and all places, all things of all shapes and sizes. Then you will know atom. Mind is not separate from atom, but emanates from him like light from the sun. In human beings, mind produces divinity. Through mind, some become godlike, for as Osiris teaches, gods are immortal men and men are mortal gods. So that's the end of this introductory course here. If you'd like the full course, you're welcome to contact me at my email address, which is michaelnotinger@yahoo.com. That's michaelnotinger@yahoo.com. I'd love to do a full class with you. I also have other classes outside of this one, and I do Reiki classes and sessions as well as spiritual counseling sessions. So Reiki is a modality of energy healing. It's possible to heal the body-mind complex through non-physical energetic means because of the quantum level, which is beneath the subatomic level. The body is just pure electromagnetic energy and information. And in a spiritual counseling session, I will channel energy and information that's stored within the fabric of space-time to help you along your own personal spiritual journey. So if you're interested in any of that, you're welcome to contact me. You are all awesome beings. You can manifest your dreams, and I hope you have a cosmically synchronous evening.